My name is Daniel. I'm 37. I work as a facilities coordinator for a regional insurance company, which mostly means I fix what breaks and make sure nothing important breaks in the first place. I live alone in a one-bedroom apartment above a dry cleaner on the edge of downtown. The rent is reasonable because the windows face an alley and the machines downstairs run late. Most nights, I eat standing up at the counter, rinse my plate immediately, and set it in the rack to dry. I sleep fine. I wake up before my alarm. Nothing in my life feels urgent. The building wakes up before I do. Delivery trucks come early, backing into the alley with that beeping sound that cuts through dreams without fully waking you. I've learned to roll over when it happens, pull the blanket higher, wait for the sound to fade. By the time my alarm goes off, I'm already half awake, staring at the same crack in the ceiling I've been staring at for 3 years. I shower, shave every other day, dress in clothes that don't draw attention. I keep my coffee routine simple, grounds measured the night before, water filled to the same line. I drink it black, leaning against the counter, watching steam rise and disappear. I don't scroll my phone in the mornings. I like starting the day without other people's thoughts in my head. Work is predictable. The building is old enough to have personality, but not old enough to be charming. Something is always humming, rattling, or threatening to stop entirely. I walk the same routes, check the same panels, nod at the same people. They know my name, or at least my face. I know which doors stick and which ones only look like they're locked. When I leave at 5, most problems stay behind. After work, I stop at the same grocery store on Tuesdays and Fridays. I buy enough for a few meals, nothing that will spoil quickly. I don't plan dinners beyond 2 days. It keeps waste down. It keeps decisions minimal. Dating, when it happens, fits into this structure. I don't look for it aggressively. I have a profile on an app one check once or twice a week. My photos are current, unremarkable. No group shots. No travel pictures meant to imply a personality I don't have. Sometimes I message first. Sometimes I reply. Most conversations taper off without explanation. I don't chase them. I don't feel rejected when they stop. It's just another thing that didn't continue. When I matched with Laura, it didn't feel different at first. Her profile was simple. One photo outside, one indoors, one where she was half turned away from the camera. She wasn't smiling widely in any of them. Her bio mentioned liking long walks and strong coffee, which didn't stand out, but there was something about the way it was written, no punctuation flair, no jokes, that made it feel unpolished in a way I trusted. We exchanged a few messages. Nothing clever. She asked what I did. I told her. She said she worked in billing for a physical therapy clinic. I asked if she liked it. She said, "It pays the bills." No emoji. No explanation. When I suggested meeting, I picked a cafe near the river, not because it was romantic, but because it was easy to park near and quiet after 6. I suggested a weekday evening. She agreed without countering. I got there 10 minutes early. I always do. I sat at a small table near the window, ordered a coffee, and waited. The place was half full. A couple arguing softly in one corner. 2 students with laptops open but untouched. The air smelled like burned espresso and something sweet I couldn't identify. Laura arrived exactly on time. She wore a dark jacket and flat shoes. Her hair was pulled back loosely, like she'd done it without a mirror. She looked around once, spotted me, and walked over without hesitation. "Hi," she said. "Hi." She set her bag down carefully, as if making sure it wouldn't tip. She sat with her hands folded in her lap, shoulders relaxed but not slouched. We talked about work first. It filled the space easily. She asked practical questions, how big the building was, whether I worked alone. I answered. When she talked about her job, she didn't complain, but she didn't soften it either. Her answers were short, factual. When there was a pause, it didn't feel urgent to fill it. We both sipped our drinks. Outside, the river reflected the street lights in uneven lines. After a while, I asked if she wanted something to eat. She looked at the menu board behind the counter. Her eyes moved slowly, as if calculating. Maybe, she said. What were you thinking? Whatever you want, I said. They have decent soup. She nodded, still looking. When the barista came over, Laura hesitated. I'll just have a small tea, she said. The barista waited, glancing between us. And a soup? I asked. Laura looked at me then, really looked. Not defensive. Just steady. I can't afford this date, she said. She didn't lower her voice. She didn't laugh it off. She didn't apologize. The sentence landed between us and stayed there. For a second, I was aware of the room, the sound of the espresso machine, the scrape of a chair, someone laughing too loudly near the door. None of it felt connected to what she'd said. It was like the rest of the place had gone flat. I want to keep dating you after this, too, I said. The words came out without planning. They weren't heavy. They didn't feel like a promise. Just a fact, the same way she stated hers. So, I added, we can split it differently. Or we can walk by the river. Or we can sit here and just drink tea. She didn't respond right away. She looked down at the table, then back up at me. There was no visible relief, no tension breaking. Just a small nod. Soup would be nice, she said. I went to the counter and ordered two. When I came back, she had taken her jacket off and draped it over the back of her chair. It felt like a quiet decision. We ate slowly. The soup was too hot at first. We waited, spoon in hand. When it cooled, we ate without comment. It wasn't a romantic moment. It was just shared time. Afterward, we walked along the river. The path was mostly empty. A jogger passed us once. A couple walked ahead, hands brushing but not holding. We talked about where we grew up. She mentioned a small town 2 hours away. I told her about my parents' house, still standing, still unchanged. She didn't ask why I lived where I did. I didn't ask why she moved. When we reached the end of the path, she stopped. I should head home, she said. Okay. We stood there for a moment, unsure of the rhythm. Then she stepped forward and hugged me briefly. It was light, careful. When she pulled back, she smiled, just a little. I'd like to see you again, she said. Me too. She walked toward the street without looking back. I watched until she reached the corner, then turned away. Back at my apartment, I unlocked the door and stood inside longer than usual before turning on the light. The place looked the same. Clean. Quiet. I set my keys down, then picked them up again and moved them to a different spot on the counter. I didn't turn on the TV. I sat at the table instead, hands flat on the surface, feeling the grain of the wood. Somewhere downstairs, a machine started up, the familiar hum rising through the floor. Later, when I got into bed, I noticed I hadn't set the coffee grounds for the morning. I left them out. The alarm went off the next day, and I woke up to the sound of delivery trucks in the alley, waiting a little longer than usual before rolling over. I didn't hear from Laura for 3 days. That wasn't unusual. People had lives. People had other conversations running parallel. I didn't check the app more than usual. I didn't reread our messages. When she texted, it was a single sentence. Do you want to walk again this week? I looked at my calendar, even though I already knew the answer. Thursday works, I wrote back. Okay, she replied. After 6? Yes. No punctuation flare. No softening. The simplicity felt familiar already. Thursday evening was cooler than the week before. I wore the same jacket. When I got to the river path, she was already there, standing near the railing, looking down at the water. She didn't turn when she heard my steps. I stopped beside her without announcing myself. Hi, I said. Hi, she said, still watching the current. We started walking without deciding a direction. The river was higher from recent rain, the water darker, faster. Leaves moved along the surface in clusters, separating and rejoining. She walked with her hands in her pockets. I noticed she matched my pace without adjusting. When I slowed slightly to avoid a patch of gravel, she slowed too, like it was automatic. After a few minutes, she said, "I brought my own coffee this time." She pulled a thermos from her bag and held it up briefly, not offering, just stating. "Good," I said. She nodded and took a sip. We didn't talk much at first. The silence felt different than before. Less tentative. More like shared air. When we did speak, it was about things that didn't require momentum: an old movie she'd watched, a leak at work that had flooded part of the clinic, the way the city handled snow poorly every year despite the predictability of it. At one point, she slowed and stopped near a bench. "I should head back soon," she said. "I have an early morning." "Okay." She sat anyway. I sat beside her, leaving space. The bench was cold through my jeans. She crossed her ankles, then uncrossed them, adjusting slightly. She took another sip of coffee, then screwed the lid back on carefully, tightening it more than necessary. "I don't usually do this," she said, gesturing vaguely between us. "Midweek." I waited. "It's easier to keep things separate," she added. I nodded. "It is." She looked at me then, her expression unreadable. Not searching, not defensive. Just taking inventory. When she left, there was no hug this time. Just a small wave and a good night. The next week, she suggested we cook instead. "My place is small," she said over the phone. "But it's closer to your work." "That's fine," I said. She gave me her address. I recognized the building: low brick, narrow balconies, the kind with uneven stairs and mailboxes that didn't fully close. I brought groceries without asking what she needed. Nothing extravagant. Pasta. Vegetables. Bread. When I knocked, she opened the door almost immediately, like she'd been standing nearby. "Hi," she said. "Hi." Her apartment was tidy but not sparse. A couch with a blanket folded precisely on one arm. A small table pushed against the wall. No decorations beyond a framed print above the sink. The kitchen was barely a kitchen: 2 burners, limited counter space. "I hope pasta's okay," I said. "It's good," she said. We cooked side by side without assigning roles. She chopped vegetables carefully, aligning them before cutting. I boiled water, stirred sauce. At one point, our elbows bumped lightly. Neither of us apologized. While we ate, she told me about her commute, how the bus was often late in the evenings. I told her I drove everywhere out of habit, even when walking would be faster. She listened without comment. After dinner, she stood and cleared her plate immediately. I followed. We washed dishes together in silence. When I reached for a towel, she handed me one without looking. At the door, she hesitated. "This was nice," she said. "Yes." She nodded, then added, "Thank you for bringing food." "Of course." She closed the door gently after I left. Over the next few weeks, we fell into a rhythm without naming it. Walks. Simple meals. Sometimes we met near my place, sometimes hers. We avoided restaurants without discussing it. When she suggested a place and then paused, I'd say, "We can just grab something and take it outside," and she'd agree. Once, she canceled an hour before we were supposed to meet. "I'm really tired," she wrote. "I don't think I can be good company tonight." "That's okay," I replied. "We can reschedule." She didn't respond immediately. When she did, it was brief. "Thank you." The next time we saw each other, she stayed longer than usual. We sat on my couch, not touching, watching a documentary either of us seemed invested in. She left her shoes on. At some point, she leaned back, resting her head against the cushion, eyes half closed. "I should go," she said, but she didn't move. I waited. After a minute, she stood, slipped on her jacket, and left. She started leaving small things behind without acknowledging them. A hair tie on my bathroom sink. A receipt tucked into a book on my shelf. Once, her mug stayed in the drying rack overnight. I didn't move it. At work, I caught myself checking the time more often. Not counting down, just noticing. On grocery days, I bought slightly more than usual. Nothing dramatic. Just enough to accommodate another person without making it obvious. One evening, while we were walking, she stopped abruptly. "Can we sit?" she asked. We sat on the curb instead of the bench. The pavement was still warm from the day. "I might need to move," she said. I didn't respond right away. "Not far," she added. "Just cheaper." I nodded. "Okay." She looked at me, then away. "I'm not asking you to help," she said. "I know." That seemed to settle something. She relaxed her shoulders slightly. We sat there until the sky darkened fully, the streetlights clicking on one by one. When we stood, she brushed dust from her palms, then did the same for me without thinking. Her hand lingered for half a second longer than necessary. Back at my apartment later, I rearranged the contents of one drawer to make space. I didn't know what for. I just knew I wanted the space. When she texted the next morning, it wasn't about plans. "Did you sleep okay?" I looked at the message longer than I needed to before replying. "Yes." "You?" "Yes." That was it. Nothing had been declared. Nothing promised. But something had shifted. Not dramatically. Not irreversibly. Just enough that leaving would now require effort. And neither of us seemed to be in a hurry to do that. Laura moved a month later. She didn't announce it like a turning point. She mentioned it the way people mention a dentist appointment, something scheduled, inconvenient, unavoidable. A smaller place across town. Older building. Fewer windows. Cheaper rent. She said it while we were walking, her hands deep in her pockets, eyes on the sidewalk. "I'll still be on the same bus line," she added, like that was the part that mattered. "That helps," I said. She nodded. We kept walking. The week before the move, our time together compressed instead of expanding. Shorter walks. Quicker meals. She seemed careful with her energy, as if rationing it. I didn't push. I adjusted. When she canceled once more, I didn't ask why. When she showed up late another night, I didn't comment. On moving day, I offered to help without framing it as help. "I'm free Saturday morning," I said. "If you want an extra set of hands." There was a pause on the line. Not long. Just enough to register. "That would be good," she said. "Thank you." I arrived early. The hallway of her old building smelled like dust and cleaning solution. Her door was already open. Boxes were stacked neatly by size, labeled in careful handwriting. She stood in the kitchen, taping one shut. "Hi," she said. "Hi." We worked without a plan. I carried boxes. She directed me where to set them, then corrected herself halfway through, changing her mind. I followed without comment. At one point, she stopped and watched me for a second, like she was taking note of something she hadn't expected. Halfway through, she sat on the floor, back against the wall, arms resting on her knees. "I need a minute," she said. "Okay." I sat across from her. The room was mostly empty now. The framed print had been taken down, leaning against the wall. The space looked larger than it ever had. She drank water slowly. When she finished, she capped the bottle and set it beside her instead of standing right away. "You don't have to stay the whole time," she said. "I know." She looked at me, then nodded. She stood, and we kept going. Her new place was smaller, darker, quieter. The windows faced another building. The stairs were narrow. We carried boxes carefully, turning sideways to fit. At the top, she unlocked the door and stepped aside, letting me enter first. The apartment was empty but clean. The air felt still, like it hadn't been disturbed yet. We set the boxes down. She stood in the middle of the room, hands on her hips, breathing out slowly. "It's fine," she said. Not to me. To the room. We assembled her bed frame together, reading the instructions more than necessary. When we finished, she sat on the edge of the mattress and bounced slightly, testing it. She looked up at me. Do you want coffee? She asked. I don't have much else yet. Coffee's good. She made it with a small machine she'd unpacked first. The cups didn't match. We sat on the floor, backs against the wall, cups warming our hands. Thank you for today, she said. You're welcome. She didn't add anything. She didn't need to. After that, our routines shifted again, quietly. We saw each other at her new place more often. My apartment felt unchanged, but less central. When she came over, she took off her shoes without asking. When I stayed at hers, I learned which step creaked and avoided it. One evening, she came straight from work, still wearing her badge. I don't feel like talking, she said. That's okay. We ate in silence. Afterward, she leaned her head against my shoulder, briefly, like testing a weight. She didn't stay there long. But she did it again the next time. A few weeks later, my car broke down. It wasn't dramatic. Just refused to start in the grocery store parking lot. I stood there longer than necessary, keys in hand, considering my options. I could have called roadside assistance. I could have taken the bus. Instead, I texted her. Are you busy? She replied quickly. I'm home. My car won't start. I can come. She arrived 20 minutes later. We waited for the tow truck together. She stood close, hands tucked under my arm to keep warm. When the truck finally came, she watched the car being pulled away, then looked at me. You can stay with me tonight, she said. It wasn't an offer. Just a statement. I'd like that, I said. That night, we slept on opposite sides of the bed, not touching. In the morning, she got up first. I heard her moving around quietly, trying not to wake me. When I opened my eyes, she was standing by the window, looking out at the brick wall across the way. Coffee's ready, she said. I joined her. We stood side by side, cups in hand. Later that week, she asked a question without looking at me. Do you want to keep doing this? She said. I didn't answer right away. I didn't need to search for the feeling. It was already there, settled. Yes, I said. She nodded. That was all. Nothing changed overnight. We didn't mark anniversaries. We didn't make plans far into the future. But we kept showing up. We adjusted around each other. When something was hard, we made room for it without naming it. One evening, months later, we were sitting on her floor, backs against the wall again. The room was fuller now. Lived in. She reached over and rested her hand on mine, leaving it there. I'm glad you stayed, she said. So am I. Outside, the city moved the way it always had. Buses passed. Lights flicked on and off. Inside, nothing felt urgent. We stayed anyway.